Hello there and welcome to another Bobeats synthesizer review, and today we are checking out the MODX M. This is the M6 version and it's the successor to the original MODX that you've seen here on the channel before. And unlike the MODX Plus, which had the same physical design as the original MODX, the new MODX M has been redesigned with more faders, knobs, buttons, and also more processing power and a new synth engine. And yes, the hair. It's short now. I guess we all have to just learn to live with it. Because the MODX M is essentially a MODX and a lot of the things I've said in previous videos still stands, I want to focus on the new things, the things that I really think are interesting with this new version. And I also want to talk about a few things that I dislike, because even though Yamaha sent this synth over to me, I'm still free to talk about things I don't like. And not to forget, I also invited my friend Armand.
Hello.
Who is a professional keyboard player and music producer.
Oh.
And at the end of the video, we are all gonna surprise him with something special, so stay tuned for that moment.
No, you're kidding.
I would call the MODX M a synthesizer designed for the stage. It's not quite a full workstation, but it's also way more versatile than most synthesizers that you see here on my channel. Concert piano.
Sounds really good.
Ballad piano. Yeah, so this sound is actually three sounds together. So it's acoustic, it's an FM piano, and also, I think, some sort of electric piano.
It sounds really good.
Like on the first MODX, you have a sample-based sound engine with a 128-note polyphony, and each individual sound or part can now have up to 128 individual elements. Think of them as sounds within sounds, as opposed to the 8 elements on the original MODX, meaning you can make a much bigger sound with just one part.
Cool sounding.
Like the original MODX, you also have an 8-operator FM synth engine with a 128-note polyphony. But there's also the addition of the ANX engine. It's a 3-oscillator virtual analog synth engine. It has fewer voices than the other engines, but it sounds quite good. And this one is like a big polyphonic synth sound. Kind of retro. Just drifting
Yeah.
out into space. The MODX M also sports this super knob, just like on the original MODX, and it's basically a way to turn multiple knobs with one knob, and this can also be linked to the motion sequencer. And the motion sequencer could be best understood as a very advanced LFO that is programmable and that can control multiple parameters across different sounds. So here we have sound. And then you can just switch on. The MODX M also has 8 parts. You can see them down here. A part is basically a sound. There's also a total of 16 parts, but only 8 can be played at one time from the keyboard. This is one of the sounds that I've made for it.
Yeah.
And then if you go to number 3 here instead.
The groove changes.
There is also a very basic sequence in the MODX M, and it's, from what I can tell, pretty much identical to the one in the original MODX. But I can't understate this, that I think the sequencer is one of the parts that really needs more work on the MODX M. I think they could have done a much better job with it, upgrading it. I think it's a missed opportunity not to make more out of it.
Guitar.
Guitars.
Let's listen to the guitars.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Beautiful.
The MODX M will also get support for Yamaha's ESP software, which is basically a way to have a MODX on your computer, so you can have the MODX sounds on the computer, and then you can create sounds and do whatever you want on the computer and then bring them back into the MODX M. Yeah.
But Bo, let's listen to the drums. Okay.
So I wanted to ask you, now that we've played the synth a bit, how do you like the sound of it?
It sounds amazing.
But it's especially good that you like the sound because, my friend, I want you, as a thank you for being in my videos, I want you to have my older MODX.
No, you're kidding.
No, I want you to have it. You to take this and see if you can use it on stage maybe. Or if you can't use it on stage, maybe for some of the... You do a lot of projects with youth and kids and stuff. I think that this could be really fun.
Oh my God. So now I can't wait to get home and try this. So with this overview out of the way, let's have a sip of the coffee and get into the things I really like about the MODX M. The first new thing that I really like is the obvious physical differences. Some things are moved, like the sequencer controls here are moved over here. We still have the same super knob over here. It also shares the same functionality, but this wheel here is actually changed. So you have these buttons here. So you can go up and down and move around. So if I want to go to a parameter, for example, I can just move around like so. And there's also this button here, which is super important. This is the navigation overview button. So regardless of where you are in the synth, you can always press this button here to get to the part overview. So this is the overview of the first part. So instead of pressing here, pressing part, oscillator 1 and so on, you can just press here and then press oscillator 1, go back, press the filter, and so on. The pitch envelope here. Can go here to the filter LFO. So it's just a very quick way of moving back and forth. Now another big improvement are the knobs here. No knobs on the older one. These knobs are actually very helpful. So if we're in this navigation view, press oscillator 1, and now we can just use the first knob here to change things. Here you see we can just move about. Press down here to go down a level, change settings here. It's just a much faster workflow. It's a substantially faster workflow. And this section here is functionally quite similar. You can access pretty much the same things. However, there are now 8 faders here. And we also have dedicated buttons here to select the different parts, so the 8 parts. You can also use them to directly mute the individual parts very quickly, and also to mute individual elements of a sound. And on the older MODX we had these 4 scene buttons, and then on the new one we have 8 scene buttons. These are basically save states, like on a mixer, for example. So it could be different level settings. You could have it so that on a scene, for example, the arpeggiator is playing on a sound or not. And then we have these knobs here, similar to how the old one is set up, but here we have much more control accessible. So these are just predefined destinations that you can control. And then you have the assign button here, which lets you assign 8 additional parameters here. So these physical improvements might seem like a minor thing, but it's really not. It's a big deal. For example, here I have a sound with 7 sounds, and I can just mix the levels here very quickly on the fly if I want to. I could very quickly mute the individual parts here. And if I am to compare like the responsiveness of the screen, I would say it's pretty similar actually on both devices. I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually the same screen. It's maybe a little bit snappier on the new one because of the higher processing power, but it's not a huge difference. But with a lot of things going on, and I start turning knobs here, for example, you can actually see that the screen is lagging pretty hard. And this is something that I'd love to see them improve with future firmware. Thankfully, it's only certain things. It's not all things. It's not all views. It's just certain views and for certain projects where I have a lot of things going on, a lot of modulation, a lot of different sounds going on. And I should also note that the keybed, according to Yamaha, is improved. And having tested them side by side, I'd say yes, the keybed feels nicer on the newer model. How do you like the keybed? Does it feel nice?
Yeah, really good, really good. It's easy to play, and the response is good.
Do you use aftertouch a lot when you play?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Because this one does not have, the engine supports aftertouch. So if you have another keyboard that has aftertouch, it supports it. But the keybed itself does not have aftertouch. So you can't like press down the key and get articulation. Is that like a deal breaker for you, or?
No.
Another new thing that I really like is the inclusion of a virtual analog engine. So if you didn't know, the previous MODX, while it could do like analog sounds, your typical synth sounds, it was all PCM based at the core. So the core oscillator is like a small sample. And it might seem like a small thing, but it really isn't. So we can just load up an initialized ANX sound here. And we also have a little oscilloscope here. And if we want to, we can just press here to go to the first oscillator. We can go back here, we can press filter to go to the filter. We can also use the navigation button that I mentioned earlier. And here you have an overview of the synthesizer over on this side here. So we have 3 oscillators and noise going through a dual filter. So I believe that there are both low pass and band pass and high pass types filters here that we can choose from, and you can have 2 of them. And here the new knobs really come into play because they let us select things and change the cutoff, for example. So here we have a 12 dB low pass filter. And for the filter, there's also drive. So if we press navigation again, we can just go to oscillator number 1 here, and we can change the waveform. And we can change the pulse width here. can set up a modulation, Nick Bat style to the pulse width. Let's see, is this one? And we gotta open up the filter again. And we can go to oscillator number 2, and we can also use these faders here, because you can either use them for the part, so changing the levels for the individual sounds that we have, or just press here to change the level for the elements, if it's a PCM-based sound, for the operators, if it's an FM sound, or for the oscillators, if it's an analog sound. So here we have noise on the 4th one, and these ones are for the 3 oscillators. So we can introduce the 2nd oscillator here, and we can turn that into a square as well here, and we can increase the pulse width. And we can introduce the 3rd one. We have this sawtooth here. We can shape the wave. We can use an LFO here to the shaper, for example, if we want to. So just changing the wave shape a bit. So on the first page here, we have tuning. We can detune the sound a little bit. I usually go for just a slight detuning on oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. And we can use an LFO here to change the pitch ever so slightly and put key on reset, so it resets the pitch instability for every note we play. So we got a little bit of a wobble there to the pitch, which I think is nice. If we go back to the part setting, there's also random panning, and we can also set a send to the reverb. I'm actually feeling turning it down an octave. Keep in mind is that there's no per part mod matrix. Instead, you have these LFOs and envelope generators that are tied to different things. So let's go back to navigation here, and here we can go to mixing, and here we get a nice little overview. Here you can also set up different frequency modulation between the different oscillators. And while in this view, we can press amplifier, and here we can just change the amplitude of the sound. And we could, if we want to, introduce a second filter as well. So I'm going to set up 2 low-pass filters here, and I'm going to use filter LFO to the second filter. Kind of nice, like a dual peak filter almost. And now we can actually go to modifier here. Here we have a wave folder. There is also an EG, an envelope for this, and an LFO for this. So we could use the envelope here to introduce a bit of waveform just at the start of the sound. Kind of interesting. And now we could go to the effects. So here we have 2 insert effects in addition to being able to send to the reverb or the variation effect. So we could send some more to variation, and then we could set up a delay here, just a stereo tempo delay. And we could add a compressor. This is something I quite like, just maybe a classic compressor. just tightening the sound a bit. Also quite good to note under ANX settings is that we have unisons, we can turn that on and off, and you also have voltage drift. So this is basically, well, an aging. So this is basically two settings to give the sound even more character. We could try and turn this into a mono sound. So under part setting, go mono, and we have unison, 4-voice unison. Let's go to amp, and let's make a much shorter amp. Let's make some changes to the filter envelope. Let's add in some portamento. That's about it. It's a really good addition to the MODX, and here are some more sounds with it. So we talked a lot about what I think is good with the MODX M. It's a big upgrade over the original one. For sure, I've used the original one quite a bit, but there are things that are still lacking. The first thing I don't like is the internal logic of the menu system. So when you press navigation, of course, this is a pretty clear way to understand what's going on. Press here, go to the oscillator. You can see here we have a piano sound, but it's just a big mess of numbers and boxes. And all of this could be so much nicer if it was just, I don't know, designed in an appealing way that was easy to understand. I also feel that when you move between menus, things jump around quite a bit. So there's very little consistency between menus on the synth. Now, once you learn the synthesizer, it's not a big problem, but it's just something that could make it even more accessible and more fun to use. For example, here's the filter EG and amp EG. Why are they different? Why do they look different? I mean, I'm sure there's a technical, like if you ask an engineer or a programmer, there's a technical explanation why. But to me, I would just love this view for this filter, even though it's just an attack, decay, and release filter. Why not have it graphically represented? So the bottom line is that when you have such a complex synthesizer, it's even more important that the menu system looks nice and is easy to understand. And here I think Yamaha can do a lot better, actually. Now, the second thing is the sequencer. Yeah, it is very basic. You can record patterns, quantize them, you can connect them into some sort of a song, but for a performance-oriented instrument, it just feels like a very old school sequencer. I would have loved something clip-based. Imagine having a clip view here. You can record different clips for different parts of the performance, and then you could just launch them by pressing the screen. And speaking to Armand, who is a professional musician with a lot of experience of using these sort of more stage-oriented synths, and I asked him, what is important to you when it comes to playing back backing tracks? And he said that the most important thing is being able to switch between different patterns quickly, like fills. So you can transition from like a verse to a chorus, maybe add a fill or something like that. And it's a little bit more complicated on a synth like this. But say you want to make something from scratch and have that play along when you're playing live, there is really not a good interface for changing the different patterns around live on the fly. And this is something where I think Yamaha could genuinely make the MODX a lot better if it was just easier to record patterns, have them play back, change them very quickly on the fly. And yeah, that would just open the synth up even more. So yeah,
maybe they will add something like this. I don't think so, but yeah, this was my attempt at making that happen. So please, Yamaha, make that happen. That would make me even happier. I do enjoy the MODX. I think it's a really good synthesizer. I think it's really good for the stage. I mean, there's so much sound, so much power on the stage. Like Arman said, it's a great sounding synthesizer, but there could be some improvements to the UI and the sequencer. So I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and as always, talk to you all later.